like clock. I can't stop. Fuck around, make my 40 pop.
Alright guys, Boruto episode 188 preview. Alright guys, this episode right here is going to be literally a legendary episode. It's going to be the first episode that we do see Kawaki and Boruto meet for the first time. Now that's not necessarily the only thing that's going to happen in this episode. I'm going to go over all of it. First things first, this episode title is not going to actually coincide with the chapter title, which has been the case over the past couple of episodes and the past couple of chapters. If you guys don't necessarily remember, over the past couple of weeks, obviously the anime has been adapting the Boruto manga, and because of that, word for word when it comes to the chapter title and the episode title, they pretty much coincided, and because of that, that made my job easy because I understood exactly what should be happening in the actual episodes. Now it's not necessarily completely coincided, but you still kind of get the gist of what exactly is going to happen in the upcoming episode. So of course I do want to kind of give you guys a temperature of what exactly we should expect to see. The chapter that we should be looking forward to basically show us exactly what should be happening in the next episode is going to be chapter 24. The chapter basically starts off with Jigen and Delta talking amongst each other. Now in this particular episode right here, they're basically talking about how Kashin Koji is taking too long on their mission. The mission that Kashin Koji is on, I'm pretty sure everybody here knows, is of course he wants to retrieve the vessel, aka Kawaki. Now in the actual manga, they don't necessarily talk about any quote-unquote traitor in the Kado organization. We didn't really know that there was a traitor in the Kado organization in terms of the manga until like extremely recently. I'm talking about like chapter 50 or something. So I'm pretty sure in the actual anime adaptation, they're most likely going to be talking about the actual traitor, and they're probably going to be talking about Kashin Koji potentially being the traitor. That's probably going to be one of the reasons why Delta wants to actually go and monitor Kashin Koji on this visit. Now arguably the biggest thing about the scene is that we get to see at least a glimpse of the leader of the Kado organization, Jigen's powers. He doesn't necessarily show us anything too crazy, but what happens is Delta pretty much destroys the table and destroys everything that's actually on the table, and then just like a blink of an eye, another table appears. Now of course fighting wise, this doesn't necessarily give us a lot of things to go off of, but I'm not gonna lie to you guys, when I seen this in the Boruto manga for the first time, I was going crazy. At this particular point, I thought it was very clear that Jigen was going to be the leader of the Kado organization, and similar to in the Boruto anime right now, so we could pretty much assume that he's going to be extremely strong, and for him to just do something like this, I thought he recreated reality. But that's besides the point. The next scene that we did see in the Boruto manga in chapter 24 was Kawaki's upbringing. We did see Kawaki when he was a little bit younger in the preview of the next episode 188, so that right there tells me that this scene right here will also be in the next episode as well. Now in this preview, we don't necessarily get to dive extremely deep into Kawaki's backstory and how he became how he was. That right there is going to be adapted a little bit later on in the Boruto anime, similar to how it was adapted a little bit later on into the Boruto manga, but this right here pretty much shows how Jigen acquired Kawaki. Kawaki, of course, his upbringing, a lot of people had the very popular theory that Kawaki could potentially be a clone of Naruto and Sasuke, that Kawaki could be an otsutsuki member, that Kawaki could be just a robot. No, this right here actually shows that Kawaki was an actual child, just a regular child given to Jigen as a younger kid. And of course Kawaki's father in this scene is portrayed as an absolute loser. Not necessarily the loser in terms of actual success, but he just didn't care about Kawaki. He was a failure in terms of an actual father. He just gave Kawaki up for absolutely nothing to this unknown guy because he wanted to pay him money. It was very clear that it was an abusive relationship, so Kawaki didn't really care either because he was leaving an abusive situation and going into a relatively unknown situation. So in his opinion, it could have possibly been an even better situation. But regardless, this scene pretty much ends with Jigen telling Kawaki, "I am your father, Kawaki." Now directly after that scene ends, Kawaki actually starts to wake up. Now when Kawaki wakes up, it's absolute pandemonium. It looks absolutely insane, and we did see in the preview right here, if you guys look at this right here, Kawaki looks like he's going absolutely berserk, and that's exactly what happens right here. When he wakes up, he creates such a blast radius. Remind you, this is just off of waking up. He didn't attack the ground or nothing. This is just off him waking up and just off of him raging, which pretty much shows us how strong Kawaki actually is. Off of him waking up, he creates this extremely huge blast radius. We see it in the Boruto manga, but we also see it in the Boruto anime as well. This right here is absolutely huge. Everybody's just looking back and looking on at Kawaki. Now once he actually does calm down a tiny bit, then you get to see the actual negotiation between Boruto and Kawaki. It was pretty much Boruto and Kawaki talking. It wasn't really a lot of other people in Team 7. Boruto's like the vocal leader of Team 7. Now Kawaki's 100% on guard just because of the sheer fact that he thinks that they are part of the Kado organization. Reminder you guys, Kawaki this whole time has been treated like he was nothing but cargo. They have been calling him a quote-unquote vessel. They don't necessarily treat him as a human being, so we can only imagine that Kawaki doesn't like being in the Kado organization, and also that Kawaki actually tried to escape the blimp that was actually holding him, which basically means that he was trying to escape the Kado organization. So of course he would definitely be wary of Team 7 potentially being partners with the Kado organization to actually retrieve him. The interesting thing in this scene is that Boruto showed Kawaki his karma seal, and Kawaki himself called called it the karma seal. Up until this point, as manga heads, we didn't really know exactly what to call it. All we really called it before was the curse mark that Boruto got from Momoshiki Otsutsuki. So as I said, at this particular point, this is when it was actually dubbed the karma seal. Now, not only that, after Kawaki seeing this, he was pretty much sure at that particular point that Boruto and everybody else were actual trackers from the Kado organization, which basically made it seem to us that there were multiple people in the Kado organization that could have potentially had the karma seal. Now, as far as the actual spoilers go, when Organic Dinosaur did actually release the spoilers, this right here is when it pretty much stopped. But I do want to kind of finish this chapter, Malem, because the last time I did something like that, the actual chapter did finish in that episode. So regardless, I do want to kind of talk about the ending of this chapter. Now, the ending of this chapter, we see an outsider, which is pretty much Garo, pretty much approach Kawaki. In this particular situation, because Garo has some sort of connection with the Kado organization, his goal, of course, is going to be to retrieve the vessel, which is Kawaki. In this particular situation, they're setting up a 1v1 battle with Garo versus Kawaki. Because Garo is an outsider of the Kado organization, they're pretty much putting him up against a character that's kind of comparable to Ao, because of course an outsider. Also, Garo doesn't necessarily seem like he was retired for 16 years, so it seems that Garo might actually even be stronger than Ao. If Kawaki is as strong as we think he is, he should be able to actually defeat Garo. It won't be an easy feat, but it'll still be very impressive nonetheless. They do kind of clash a little bit at the end of this chapter, but of course it's not necessarily going to be anything too significant where we do get to see exactly how the battle is going to go in the future. But regardless, this episode right here is going to be a very big one. Not only do we find out exactly how Boruto and Kawaki meshed at the first meeting, but also we get to see Kawaki basically sizing up a member of the Kado organization. And not only that, we also get to see Delta and Jigen actually have some sort of conversation. In the manga, it doesn't necessarily, in the manga they don't necessarily talk about there being any traders, but in the anime we definitely assume that they will actually be talking about some sort of traders. And not only that, we can also see the first instance of Jigen using his actual powers. But let me know what you guys think about this episode in the comment section below, and give me some things that you're definitely looking forward to. I think the most popular one is going to have to be Boruto and Kawaki meeting for the first time, when Kawaki does go absolutely berserk for no apparent reason and creates a very huge crater. It's going to be very interesting. But this has been your boy Baara B, and we out.
It's a knife.